In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, the one God, to whom all praise is due, the Lord of the worlds, the finder of us who were lost, and the life giver to us, a people who have been styled by the prophets of the Bible and the Holy Quran as being mentally and spiritually dead in the grave of ignorance. We thank Almighty God for His finding us, for His claim of us, for His choice of us to be His people, and we thank Him for finding one among us worthy to receive the life-giving truth that would resurrect an entire sleeping nation from its grave. I thank Allah for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, God's last messenger to the black man of America, to the nations of the earth, before the close of the present world that we now know. I'm happy and honored to greet you, my brothers and sisters, with the greeting words of peace. In the Arabic language, we say, Assalamu alaikum. And those words in Arabic mean simply in English, peace be unto you. To those who are not familiar with those words, if you study Scripture, you will find that Jesus never met His disciples or left His disciples without first saying, peace be unto you. He didn't speak English. The scholars say that He spoke Aramaic, ancient Egyptian Arabic, or Hebrew. So if Jesus were here, He would say in Hebrew, Shalom Aleichem. He would say in Arabic or Aramaic, Assalamu alaikum, or in English, peace be unto you. This is the best way, in my judgment, to begin our discourse this morning, by offering to my brothers and sisters that which the world has deprived us of, peace and contentment of mind. For truly, we cannot solve the problems of the world technologically or humanly unless we solve our own problems of internal conflict and contradiction. And when we bring ourselves to the state of peace, which is the basic state for creative thinking, we are then on a foundation that is perpetual. When we say peace, we mean a peace that comes only by man's submission, obedience to divine law. You cannot become a great scientist unless you discover law, and after discovering law, you must build according to law. Then if you in your scientific world must build according to law, and wherever there's a deviation from law, you set into motion the very death of the thing that you're trying to build. If that is true in the physical realm, it is also true in the human and spiritual realm, that there are laws governing everything. And if we obey those laws, we are in harmony with the universe and its order. When we deviate from those laws, we set up the disorder that brings death. So the peace that I'm speaking of is the peace that all of the prophets of God offered to their people, which their people rejected. That peace that the United Nations seeks but cannot find. That peace that America wants but cannot find. Because peace today cannot come on your terms or mine. Peace can only come on the terms laid down in the creation of the heavens and the earth, in harmony with immutable law. And when we are in submission to that kind of law, then we enter into peace. Then we can become a peacemaker. Jesus in his Sermon on the Mount said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." But we live in a world that is built by peace breakers. So surely they must be called the children of Satan. Now, if your technology and your perspective of technology is based on the perception of one who has broken the divine law and offends the natural law, then your engineering skills are impaired, if you will, from Jump Street. I want you to relax, because I'm very much at home, and I'm grateful to Gary Harris and Mike Spencer, to the organizers of this wonderful conference, for the honor of being invited to talk to you, my brothers and sisters, who came to this conference on engineering to go away with something that will aid you to be a better servant of our people in our struggle for liberation. I hope that's your intention. I am sorry that I missed the portion of the conference that led up to this moment, because I believe that in order for one to teach, one must also learn. And I want to be a better student so I can become a better teacher. The sickness of this world is to make you think you have arrived after you achieve their degree. I shall repeat that again. The sickness of this world is to make you think you have arrived after you have received their degree. But brothers and sisters, as long as you live in this universe, you will always be arriving and never quite getting there. Because we were born into a house of truth. When you came out of your mother's womb, you were born into a universe of knowledge which is the principal teacher. Cornell just happens to be a place in the universe, a very small place, that has a reputation for its brilliance. Well, that's fine. But if we understand that you were brought into this world from the darkness of the womb of your mother with a capacity to know, and not only to know, but a capacity to master the very house that you were coming into. I'm going to say that again. You were born from your mother's womb, coming into a house of knowledge. Not only to learn from this house, but to become a master of the universe. And if you don't see yourself as one with the quality, capability of becoming a master, then you approach your discipline from an inferior mind, which never allows you to become what God intended. As a black student in engineering, you have several strikes against you. How many of you are in engineering, by the way? All right, we'll get to the other disciplines. They want black students to feel and believe that the technical fields are white fields. And young man, young woman, this is rather difficult for you. And when you get to these so-called houses of learning, if you're in a technical field, such as engineering and the sciences, which is the base of civilization, then the wise know that if you become a master of those scientific fields and engineering fields, which are the very base upon which civilization rests, then you can become a builder for your people. And we don't want you to build for your people. We want you to seek a job in the civilization that we built, even though it's diametrically opposed to the very nature of your creation. Listen good. So I'm going to flunk you as best I can. As soon as you get in the door, I'm going to make it so difficult for you that the rate of attrition in engineering and science will be so great that you will go out of here saying, oh, this. You'll go back to the ghetto saying, man, mathematics ain't nigger stuff. You know what I mean? Engineering is whitey's thing. That's why I messed up. And poor you if you got here on a football scholarship, a basketball scholarship, a track scholarship. You are a modern slave on a modern plantation system called Cornell that does not give a damn about your future. But football is big business. And black folks have always had strong backs and weak minds, and we need you at Cornell. But don't get into no difficult course, because we may not have you as a football player. So you come and learn phys ed. Get into music. Get into something that is lightweight so you can play football, basketball, or run track. And don't worry if you're flunking. I'll fix it. Because we need you, nigga, to run that ball, tote that barge, lift that bale. But after the 4 years are up and you are ill prepared for life and ill prepared to make a contribution to your struggling people who think that because you have a degree from these sacred halls of nothingness that you can make a valid contribution to them, they find that you are as dumb on leaving or dumber on leaving than you were on entering. So their hopes are dashed. And then, of course, there are those of you who have been told that if you get a fine education, you'll have a fine job. And plantation management is here today to talk about your career on the plantation in the big house called corporate America. And as Malcolm said, you know, there is a difference between the field nigger and the house nigger. And you are being groomed for a house nigger position. Yes, you are. Yes. So, to suck up your brain, siphon your skills, to keep up corporate America, which is an enemy to human development and an enemy to the liberation of our people. For you to be hidden away in these ivory towers using your technical misperception to keep up a house that is your enemy for a salary that will allow you temporarily to ride a nice car or live in a nice home or appear to be respected among your white peers. If you opt for that, you will be a double loser, because you will never be fully accepted in corporate America, and you will never be fully respected for whatever your inventions or your ideas are. You will be a modern George Washington Carver who may have extracted several things from the peanut, but his name is not even on peanut butter, nor do we have the money from the hull of the peanut in the family of Carver to do anything constructive with today. So, our little talk this morning hopefully will break all chains of slavery, at least as many as we can, so that you won't leave here with any illusions about this world, and that you will understand as engineering students and science students that your role is not to fit into dying white America, but your world is to come out of here, to be prepared to make a contribution, a lasting contribution to the rise of your people by giving a scientific base for a new civilization. Understand, man? Don't think in terms of a job. Think in terms of how many jobs engineering and science can create for a people that are jobless, and white people are not going to make jobs for you any longer. These institutions were not set up to serve you, so they can't be made relevant to you. You must make the learning process relevant to your needs. Now, where to begin? I want to start first with approach to discipline. How should we approach our discipline? If we approach the discipline from a misperception of the discipline, then whatever flows out of that will always be a series of more misperception. If you approach the discipline and you don't relate the discipline to yourself, then you're always on the outside of the discipline looking in, rather than making the discipline a core in yourself that springs from you. You remember when we first started, we said that we came out of our mother's wombs with the capacity to know and to master. To know and to master. Let us look at this. I was a student of the violin. Most blacks, if you're going to make it in this world, you get into music or you get into sport. My mother gave me the violin at 5 years old. By the time I was around 12, I knew that I wanted to master that instrument. At first, my mother had to use a broomstick to get me to practice. But at 12, I voluntarily disciplined myself to practice 10 hours a day. Into the night, back into the day. My mother then wished for some peace, but it was too late. I remember winning a lot of contests that put me on national television with the Horace Heidt show. And I remember when they take some biographical material on you so that they can write what they want you to say, they asked me about myself, and I said, yes, I want to master this instrument and play it as well, if not better, than Jascha Heifetz, who at that time was the #1 violinist in the world. This appalled them, to think that a little black boy wanted to play an instrument as great, if not greater, than the master of this instrument at that time. Now, the racism was so profound and pervasive that when they learned I was also a track star at my high school, they changed up my desire to say on television, I hope one day I'll be able to play the violin as fast as I can run. Now, there's a principle in that. And the principle is this: don't you feed mastery into the minds of blacks. don't you give blacks the idea that they can master anything but that which is dependent. Let them be a master of the arts, because then they're dependent on us to build the civilization that arts can fit in. And their art will be a perception of our norms and values and standards. You see? So they stopped me at 13. But when I became a follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I gave up my music to preach what I'm preaching now, which is music on a higher level for those whose ears are perceptive. But he, in teaching me that I am the original man. Now listen to this word. I'm not black because I was cursed. I'm not black because I'm some accident that went somewhere to happen. I am black because I am the original life in the universe. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
You mean white is not original? No, it's not. No, I don't want you to think that I'm some crazy, wild-eyed racist. I'm not. We're scientists. Now, and scientists are not going to deal in something emotional. We're going after facts. If it is a mathematical, genetical, biological impossibility for two whites to produce yellow, but they can only produce themselves, then they could not be the father of all human beings. So if they are not the father, then they are one that came after the father. Something later in the scheme of human development. And if that is true, and it is, and that the black man is the original man, and he is a direct descendant of the creator of the heavens and the earth, then he is by nature a born master. A born, listen to me good now, a born master, not only of music. Music is mathematics. When you hear a black man in Africa drumming, what is he doing? That's mathematics. White folks may not be able to do that just like that, but they'll study the original and then they'll learn how to write it. This is called, in music, dictation. Then they'll go back and they'll practice what comes out of you naturally. They'll practice it. No. Then after they get it down, then they got the job. And their own kind pay them tremendous sums, because this is great to see a white boy sing black. To see a white boy tap dance. That's rhythm, brother. That's mathematics. When you see a black man floating in the air and twisting and turning and dunking, brother, that is absolute skill. Mathematics, timing, rhythm. Huh? Aerodynamics, if you will. Now, once the Honorable Honorable Elijah Muhammad made me to see, not in a racist foolishness, that I am a descendant of the Creator. I am the first in the light of the sun, and my father is the builder of civilization from which all other races got their knowledge of mathematics and science and medicine and philosophy. Then once I understood that and internalized that understanding, then I approached my violin not as a student studying something, but as one who has the ability to master it. And today, though I don't play anymore, I can take it up anytime I want to. Come here. And go on to work. And it cannot do any more than what I commanded. So if you're going to approach your discipline from some weak thing, I'm in engineering, and I'm really struggling. It's tough. Then you'll always be trying to catch up. And the terminology that will be used will revolve around your head, have you up half the night, almost insane. Can't do anything, your eyes crossed, you know what I mean? You're not human in your development because you've been made to think that this is an unnatural subject for you, when you are a born master of all of it. But you are approaching it from a white perspective, and that's your problem. Now, oh, now, just a minute. Just a minute. You said, how can there be a white perspective on science and mathematics? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Do you know that biology and genetic makeup actually helps your perception? Or you can't perceive a thing even outside of the nature of your own makeup? Do you know that man and woman, though we are from the same essence, the genetic and biological makeup of the man is different from the biological makeup of the woman? Therefore, we can look at the same object and we will perceive it differently. But like two eyes, the perception is supposed to complement. Huh? Now you don't think that's true. But you scientists, go check it. You have been on the surface of all your disciplines. You have never dug at the root of it because you are from your science, your scientific knowledge is from a limited mind. And that limited mind gives you a limited perspective. But if you would come to yourself, which is original, then go back to your original self, which will give you your original perception of God and the universe and its order, then out of that will come a whole new creative process, which will dwarf the scientific, technological achievements of this world. The scripture says there's nothing new under the sun. Man has flown before. But we don't use these kind of contraptions. This is not new. Radio is not new. Television is not new. In this world's development, it's very new. But our original parents, we don't use mechanical things. This is a radio, if you know how to use it. This is television, if you know how to use it. Man can actually bring up in the cells of his brain vision of what is going on anywhere in the world or the universe. He's capable of picturing Mars and the life there and extracting it and bringing it here. You don't need a physical contraption if you learn how to use the original mind that God has given you. These are but developmental stages of a lesser technology. What? Yes, brother. You get snatches of this now. Sometimes you wake up and you perceive something that you've never seen before. And you wake up and say, oh man, I saw such and such and so and so. And it happens just like you saw it. What did you get? You got a vision of something that had not come into reality, but your mind was able to perceive what was about to happen. Haven't you met experiences like this? Have you had experiences that made you feel that you were in a place that you've never been before? You know you've never been, but yet you know what you're going to meet next? Have you had those kind of experiences? Have you had any kind of experience where you've traveled and been in your bed to places that you've never seen before, and then go there and see it exactly as it is, as you perceived it from your bed? This has given you hints of the brilliance that God has given to man, that is in our brain and within our grasp, but how do you achieve it? All right? So I think we understand that we do not approach our discipline, no matter what that discipline is, without the mind that we are able to master it. That's number one. And all disciplines are related to self. That's number two. You are chemistry, right? There's a natural problem-solving mechanism within the human construction. Physically, something goes wrong in the body moves to solve that problem. You call that outside of the body engineering. Huh? But inside of the body, this is going on daily. So engineering is not something strange. It is a part of you. Electricity and the wonders of electricity is a part of yourself. You're not studying something that's foreign. You're really studying something that's a part of you that you need to understand. Physics, chemistry, biology, botany, mathematics, music, harmony, medicine, you are all of this in your own self. So when you're studying these disciplines, you're really studying yourself. And to know these disciplines and to relate them to yourself is to become a whole person. If you understand, was it Einstein that discovered the theory of relativity? Did he say that all things are related? Well, if you understand that, then every discipline is like a spoke of a wheel that comes out from one hub. And if you understand your discipline and its relationship to another discipline, the key to understanding the relativity of your disciplines is to relate to the center out of which all these disciplines spring. And since all religion and mathematics start from one, in spiritual terms, we say, Kul huwa Allahu ahad. Say he, Allah, God is one. If God is one, and mathematics, which is the language, the true language of religion, of true religion, begins with one, then you should understand that everything starts from one and never gets away from one. If we start from one cell, right, and we multiply into billions of cells, is that true? Yes. But it's just one body. All of this is atoms, right? And the atomic structure of it looks similar. This doesn't look similar to that. But if you could see the atomic structure of it, you'd see it's simple. Right? So the root of all things is one. Now what does that mean to us in this discourse this morning? If we are in harmony with nature, if we are at peace with the universal order of things, then we have a perception of reality that makes our problem solving natural. We're talking about engineering now. If engineering is problem solving or developing methods, now I'm going to come right back to religion to show you where all things are really related. Method. Method and implementation. To solve problems is what we call engineering. All right? Suppose you smoke a reefer. Just suppose, not that you do. Or suppose you go to your dorm after this lecture and you say, man, I'm going to take me a drink. When you introduce into your system something that is not natural and harmonious and good for your system, once it gets into the blood carries it throughout your whole system in a matter of 8 minutes and 20 seconds. If you put alcohol in the blood, once it reaches the blood, in 8 minutes it's all over your body. It takes 500 seconds, 8 minutes and 20 seconds, for there to be a complete circulation of blood from the heel to the head and back to the heel again. It is the blood, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has taught us, that washes the cells of the brain, that brings up vision. And whatever filth is in the blood, it is deposited in the cells of the brain, thereby impairing your vision and your perception. I'm coming to something. Please listen. If this is true, and it is, the slightest introduction into your system of any kind of poison will impair your judgment. And anything that impairs your judgment damages your perception of reality. And if under that state you are developing methods for solving problems, you may solve one and create three. Have you noticed that the technology of America is weak? Even though you think it's great, the technology of this world produces advancement but death. Huh? Come on. You get in a car, right? It's wonderful. We are moving from New York to Ithaca. I made it last night in 7 hours. Technology was marvelous. I got here. But how much death did I produce in the atmosphere trying to get here with the automobile? Here the jet moves across the sky so beautifully, but the technology is not perfect. Therefore, she brings death. We look at the television and we see things happening all over the world. The television is a marvelous piece of technology, but there are problems that need to be solved because the rays bring death. Is that right? So here we are making advancement, but creating problems that is killing human development, killing the society as you make technological advancements. Well, what does this come from? Your ability to perceive reality is impaired. And what has impaired your ability? Not only what foods you eat that are contrary and drinks that you drink, but the lifestyle that you live is an enemy to your perception. Let's move on. This came to me this morning, by the way, that this is the way that I should attempt to address the students, because we have a very funny idea about religion. We really think religion is just for ignorant people who want to praise some spook god and raise a whole lot of religious hell. It's not mathematics that's wrong, it's your understanding of religion. Never throw away mathematics, but throw away your perception of religion if it conflicts with mathematics and scientific principle. Now, let's move on. Everybody all right? I know this is not too heavy for you. I'm sure of it. Now look, you smoked a reefer. I'm coming back to the reefer. That's real, isn't it? Yeah. You light up the joint. Now after you smoked up several reefers, how do you act? No, I mean, but I'm getting to something. And what causes you to act like that? When I used to smoke reefers, I noticed that when I smoked a reefer, I thought that things that were far off were up close. And some things that I thought were up close were far off. I remember when I used to sing in a nightclub, one time some brother brought up some ganja from somewhere. And after I smoked it, I was rolling around in the street. And I had a set to make and a song to sing. And when I got there, I was singing the song, I guess, but I couldn't remember whether I had done a chorus or a chorus and a half. It seemed like everything was slow and I wasn't in harmony with the rhythm of things. So from that day, I never would get high and perform because I felt it impaired my ability to perform. Now, if on a simple thing such as judgment, alcohol, you get drunk, what did I do last night? You wet yourself, man, and you puked up all over the neighbor's carpet. I did that? You mean you didn't know what you did? You were so out of it. All right. Well, if there is a spiritual relationship to physical things, what can make you drunk on the spiritual and intellectual level that can damage your perception of reality? Come on, engineers. All right. If you can ingest something on a physical level that will impair your judgment, and there is a definite spiritual relationship to the physical, what can you take in spiritually that will damage your perception of reality? Now, some of you don't even think you're drunk. You're right here now, and you think you are all right. You say, I didn't have nothing. I ain't smoking no reefer. I don't smoke reefer. I don't drink no whiskey. I'm cool. But do you know this is a thing or arrogance that damages your perception of reality. That's why all leaders, when you become proud, self-centered, vain, egotistical, that does to your mind what alcohol does to your body. It damages your perception of reality. This is what's wrong with Jimmy Carter. This is what has been wrong with the people of power. Their perception of reality is damaged, and that's why revolutions come and overthrow governments, and they don't know why the people are not satisfied. Why don't they like us? Well, we're nice to the people. What the hell is wrong with your ability to perceive reality? White folks look at black people and say, look, done everything I can for you people. Why aren't you people happy? I don't understand. What do you people want? What happened to your perception of reality? That you can't see your own house seething, moving into revolution that is going to overthrow the present government of America. What is wrong with the educational system that the educators cannot perceive that men and women and circumstances have outgrown the methodology that you are teaching in your own institutions of learning? And as long as you are arrogant, falsely proud, your wealth has made you out of your mind. Your fame has upset the balance of your mind. Your religion, which is a spook-oriented thing, which keeps you looking for something to come after you're dead in another world, that's damaging your perception of reality. And anytime a man that's got that kind of sickness in his mind is responsible for engineering and developing problem-solving methodology, he's going to produce something that is going to keep the problem getting worse and worse and worse. And that's why America's contradictions are moving now to the very fullness, because her problem-solving apparatus is completely insufficient to solve the complex problems of America. Why? Her engineering is off. Her technology is off because she's drunk off of false pride and arrogance, which has damaged her perception of reality. Now, if you want to be an engineer, that's what I'm coming to. You have got to realize that there is a creator who has given everything its nature, its function. And if you're not in harmony with that thing, the nature of it, the function of it, then it's not the function or the nature of that that's off, it's you that's off, and your misapplication from your misperception will lead to your destruction. Now I'm going to deal with sex, if I may. People are going to doctors, trying to discover new methods of sexual gratification. Doc, something's wrong with me, Doc. Oh, I'm just talking on something. If you're drunk off of sex, don't you know that's a drug too? If your whole mindset is revolving around this, then your perception of reality is so off till we can't trust your skill. Because your skill is also off because your perception is off. Because you are misusing and abusing a natural function. And if you misuse and abuse a natural function that is a part of your own biological makeup, what will you do with other things, engineers? See, you can't get away from religion. True religion is not just 11 o'clock worship service. It's bringing you to the reality of God, of life, and your aim and purpose for being here. And once your perception is in harmony with God's perception, since He's the creator of the thing, He's the best one to give you the proper perception of what He created or what He permitted to come into existence. Then when you're like that, you stand at the center of the discipline, then you can relate all disciplines to yourself, because you yourself are in complete agreement with the Creator and His perception of what He created. And that's the only way, in our humble judgment, for you to develop engineering that will truly solve problems. Now, to conclude this, when the scripture says of Jesus, I am the way, the truth, and the life. If you just look at those words, it seems so simple. But when he uses the definite article, the way, he's telling us he has the method. That if we are in tune with him and that method, your perception of reality is such that you can approach your discipline and master it and absolutely develop engineering, mathematics, science, civilization that will be as the universe, perpetual. Not the rise and the fall, the up and the down, but a perpetual thing that is constantly evolving toward perfection. But if you reject divine law, divine truth, divine method, you reject the very thing that will bring you in harmony with the universe and bring you true perception of reality. Now, I would like to end that scientific discourse with this and then close the subject matter out. The world in which we live, brothers and sisters, is a contrary world. It has deviated from nature. This world, what we call the white world, is a deviant world. It has started from a perversion that has produced a whole system of perversion, which is reflected in the unnatural way of life of the people. Black people being brought into this world, stripped and robbed of the knowledge of self, are living an unnatural life. I'm talking about you and me. Where it is natural for things of the same kind to find comfort in each other. Here we are, people of a common history, a common suffering, and a common destiny, but we cannot find common cause in each other to struggle for our own liberation. Unnatural. White people who just came to this country a few days ago are advancing in the society so rapidly till it makes what you call our advancement look as though we are standing still. Here's Puerto Ricans that came here a few years ago. But there's a certain commonality and unity in the Puerto Rican that allows him to take a negative circumstance and move ahead with it, where here's the brother and sister who've been here over 400 years, but we are so unnatural in our relationship to one another that we want to find unity with white people before we find unity with ourselves. That's a whole unnatural thing. You want to integrate with them before you integrate among yourself. What does that mean? You have an unnatural perception of reality. Your perception of reality is a slave's perception. That's right. You're thinking like your master wants you to think. He wants you to think that his world is the be-all and end-all of all worlds, so it's a joy and a privilege to be a part of this perversity. His economic system is the best. There can be no improvement on it. And certainly you can't improve on it. So join this decadence. Look, it's all right to be a faggot. It's all right. Don't feel bad about it. It's all right to be a lessee. It's okay. Don't pay any attention to what Jesus and Moses and those guys were old-timers. But this is a modern world. Your perception of reality is so unnatural now, till your use and abuse of each other is so gross. What are you going to do with your engineering, man, if your human life is so damn decadent? Now, I want you to hear me. What are you going to do? What are you going to do in a society that's gone mad and you're a sociology major? What are you going to do with your psychology and you're almost a nut right now? I'm saying almost because I'm trying to be nice. But you are out of your mind. That's what being insane means, out of your mind. Well, if you're out of your mind, whose mind are you in? And don't you know that Caucasians don't bring you to these schools to put your mind in you? They bring you here to put their mind in you, so you become a black man with a white mind, with white norms, white values, white ideals, and your perception, wait a minute, your perception of reality is their perception of reality, which is no perception of reality because their perception genetically is a deviation. Now look, brother, their whole world is a deviation. From Greece all the way to the magnificent Rome to America is a deviation from the natural order of life. And this is what you're being baptized into, their deviation. So when you go out of this university with your BS or your master or your PhD, what are you going to bring to a people who are struggling for liberation from deviation? And the deviation is produced by ignorance of self and ignorance of the creator of this world and the kind of mindset that this world has. You run from capitalism into communism, or you run from communism into nationalism, or you run from Christianity into Islam, into Buddhism, and you can't get out of the same mindset because the same perverse man is in control of the religion, of the politics, of the economics of the world. And because you cannot see that you have a root that is independent of Marx, a root that is independent of Buddha, a root that goes deeper than Muhammad, than Jesus, than Moses, and because you cannot find that root, you can't bring up originality. And originality is your only salvation. If you follow the pattern of the white man's world, you go down with the white man's world. But you got to come out of his world. Because his world is falling, brother and sister, because he don't have no damn engineering skill that is masterful enough to save him. Because his mind is screwed up. His mind is sick on himself. He feels that he is God. And he's playing God and he's messed up his own world. He's not the man for you to follow. You got to come out from him and get into God and the original nature of yourself, and then you will come up out of yourself with a society or a way of life that is so in harmony with nature that you will be able to live after this world is gone. This is what all Scripture is pointing to. Now I'm going to close. You think that when you leave here 4 years from now, that there's promise and hope in this world? Oh, brothers and sisters, the economy of this country is nearly dead. It's on its last leg. You are students of economics. This man has violated all of the economic principles of good health. He loves profit so that he will feed death to the American people for the sake of profit. His chemistry is death. Huh? His food represents death. And you who are completely dependent on their technology and their methodology don't realize that these TV dinners and this madness that they are pumping up the food with, the stuff that they're putting in the soil to give life to the soil because they've raped the soil of its nutrients by their greed, which is a blinding factor like pride. If you put greed, pride, arrogance, sex, and a whole lawless mind, and I'm not talking about their civil law, I'm talking about divine law. This is a lawless world. And their lawlessness has damaged perception of reality. And this is why the white man cannot even perceive where his destruction is coming from, but he knows it's coming. His arrogance, Jimmy Carter's arrogance, will not permit him to say to the Iranian people, we are sorry for the past injustices of our terrible administration. We intend to make amends for it, atone for it. He don't have that atoning spirit. White folks don't want to atone for the atrocities done to you, but they want the Germans to atone for the atrocities done to Jews. You understand? They cannot see you as a human being. So whoever among you is killed, it's all right. It's just another nigger gone. So 100 millions of us died in the Middle Passage, but that's not a Holocaust, because it's only black lives. Some, that's right, 100 million is a conservative estimate. Very conservative. So, brother said 250 million. But that don't mean nothing, because we don't have nobody on NBC, CBS, or ABC to tell our story like the Jews do. So their Holocaust is in your mind. Isn't it terrible what the Germans did? It's awful. But you can't see what has been done to you. And you think that because you're sitting at Cornell that you're straight, but you've been so done in that your very presence bears witness to your massacre. I mean, the things that you got in your brain right now bear witness to your total destruction. And if there's not a reform of your thinking, we are finished as a people. If your thinking stays like it is right now, we are lost as a people. You have got to change. And the only thing that's going to change you is not my teaching. What did Brother Gary say? He said heat will cause things to what? Expand. You don't have to worry, Gary. It may have contracted, but there's some heat that's coming up now that will cause your head to expand and everything else you've got to expand to receive a truth that you have been playing with and rejecting for years. You've had great leaders, great teachers, but you haven't paid one of them any attention. So this is the end of teaching. But now the chastisement comes. You heard what Grandmama used to say, a hard head makes a soft behind. You don't need no more teaching. You need a behind kicking, and that's what's on the way. Now how are you going to get it, and how will it help you to perceive reality? As this economy falls, we are totally dependent on this economy. As they weaken, we being totally dependent, we feel it first. Right? You can't blame them now for letting you off the jobs, because their nature says, look out for your own kind first. That's what you should have been doing, looking out for yourself. But you're not doing that. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teaching, all the other great teachers who said, come on, let's get busy, learn this, learn that, apply this, apply that to do something for self. You said, oh man, long as white folks creating jobs, man, we all right. Now white folks can't make jobs for their own millions of unemployed, much less yours. This man is so serious. He's a student of all of these disciplines. He sees the birth rate decline of his own people and the birth rate incline of your people spells trouble for him. He understands that. In pure demographical terms, it spells trouble, because as his birth rate declines, that means there's an appreciable increase in middle age and old age in his population, and a considerable increase in youth in our population, which means fighting age and working age. So he don't have no more job for you, but he got a war coming up that's just tailor-made for you. So he's got all these ROTC programs, and he's telling you Uncle Sam wants you. Now he's got Ali saying, I'll be the first to go, to encourage you to go fight for something that has come to its end. But if you can't see and perceive reality, you're going to see this as your reality and go right on with it. So brothers and sisters, I hasten to tell you, we've got to make some changes. We've got to pull up from this filthy, decadent, immoral lifestyle, because it's damaging your perception of reality. They've got you now in the hog trough. Yes? You are ready, whether you know it or not, for a modern genocide. You're being prepared for it now. They're much more skillful than the Germans. They have developed what they call genetic weapons, ethnic gas, where they drop it out on the biological population of Asians. And if you are not of the biological genetic makeup of the Asian, you can survive the gas that they put in that room. But if you are of that biological makeup, you're gone. Flying over San Francisco, blowing out germs on San Francisco to test it on the population. This man is a master of a technology that leads to death and destruction. And you are just like the Jews in Germany. You're being lulled to sleep. Illusions are being created by your sick leadership to make you think that America has changed and things are better. Racism is dead. And while they paint that illusion, your musicians are going around getting you ready for your destruction, keeping you. Just check yourself. Got your mind revolving on the lowest plane of existence. Let's get on down. Get funky. Let's look at the suggestion. Come on, let's get on down. And let's get funky. Shake your booty in the bush. Hey, now. What are they suggesting to you? Stay in a dehumanized state where your level of perception will be so impaired that anything that you learn in these halls of learning, you will never be able to use to liberate anybody, because you yourself will be a slave to your own subdevelopment. Lawless. Totally lawless. And when I say lawless, I'm not dealing with just this little law, running a stop sign, speeding. I'm talking about totally disrespectful of divine law. Misusing the woman. Brothers, there's no way in the world you can tell me you perceive reality and then misuse a woman. Your perception of reality is so twisted till your perception of reality is pleasure, but not responsibility. See, the way nature got it set up, nature says, enjoy this sexual union. But this sexual union will produce life, which is going to produce pain to produce life, and then responsibility. So with pleasure comes pain, comes responsibility. This world is constantly reinforcing the lesson, you get something for nothing. So sister, you take the pill. So you can have all the pleasure you want, but no responsibility. Come on, brother, she's taking the pill. Knock yourself out because there's no responsibility. And now you just a pleasure seeker. Check it out. But you don't want no responsibility. The minute she says, I'm pregnant, you say, oh hell, look baby, there's an abortion clinic right down the street. Because you don't want responsibility. That's a perception of reality that is sick. It's got to change. The destruction of our women has got to change. Brothers and sisters, I hope that this conference will help us to see that the world in which we live is fallen. And black people all over the world are struggling to free themselves from the Western man's perception of reality. You must struggle to free yourself from this perverted perception of reality and come to the grip on your life and let your technology, your engineering come from a wholesome self that has been restored to a natural balance. And when that happens, you will be able to solve problems and not create more as you solve the few that you solve. I hope and pray that the words that we've spoken have stimulated thought. Thank you for listening, and may Allah bless you. Assalamu alaikum. Brothers and sisters, we have a few short minutes. I don't think it would be fair for us to leave without allowing you to ask some questions. There's so many things that need to be covered that we just can't cover in a few minutes. All right. I should start with brother over here. Pardon my pointing.
That's perfectly okay. One of the questions I'd like to ask, what can be done in many respects to change the thought process of black people particularly, since it seems that since we as black people have the wrong perspective, as you say, what can we do as individuals here to help change that thought process?
His question, what can we do to change the thought process of black people? Very briefly, the scripture says in these words, behold, I make all things new. The only way you can create a new thought, you have to introduce to that mind a new idea. And that new idea will bring up new thinking. And from that new thinking, you will get a different activity. If you will notice, my brother, and I'd like to use Malcolm as an example. In my judgment, Malcolm is an example of what is latent and dormant in black people if we get a change of direction. Malcolm always was talented. He was always brilliant, but there was no avenue of expression for that brilliance, and there was no watering of that brilliance to allow that brilliance to germinate. And so when the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad met Malcolm in prison, it introduced to Malcolm a new idea. And that new idea brought up in Malcolm a new consciousness, a whole new thought process, which allowed Malcolm to think outside of the framework of white experience. And that made him able to come outside of their world and judge it. So Malcolm was an 8th grade student. That's as far as he went in school. But there was no PhD degree that this world produced that could handle Malcolm. So what happened? He who gives you the diameter of your knowledge prescribes the circumference of your activity. So as long as we had no independent teacher, but white folks and what those that they trained taught us, then we function within a sphere that they could always control. But Malcolm got a dimension outside of the sphere of their world. So this enabled him to draw a circumference of activity that would allow blacks to emerge out of their world into a broader world. The base of a new thinking is the introduction of a new idea. And what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad introduced was a new idea with respect to self. And once your thinking concerning yourself is revolutionized, then your whole perception of reality with respect to yourself is changed, and a whole new thought process emerges. Your music changes, your art changes, your poetry, your drama, your lifestyle, and then your engineering, your architecture, your whole perception of mathematics and its application changes, and out of that comes a new world. Thank you. Now, there was another hand. Yes, sir?
Yes, sir. I'd like to know, what are some of the some of the goals that you have in mind in bringing us back to natural path, the right way of life? Some of the things that you think that should be done for the community, and some of the things that you have in mind to do for the community.
Yes. His question, what are some of the goals that you have for black people? What are some of the things that you feel we have to do to bring ourselves back into this perception of reality? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad sees the black man of America as an instrument that the Creator intends to use to bring into being an entire new world, that world that is called in Scripture the kingdom of heaven or the kingdom of Islam. We see the suffering of black people as having shaped us into a vessel that is a unique instrument. If you look at yourself carefully, there is no people on earth who could have undergone what we have undergone and yet have a heart of compassion and love. I mean, that's unique. And this is a human being that is so human even in his degraded state that if he's cleansed of that which degraded him and brought into harmony with the universal order of things, out of this repository of human essence will come that which will feed humanity to a world that has become bestial. How do we do this? What are some of the things you envision? First of all, we have to create the institutions that will feed our perception of reality. We can come to these institutions, but we must not come to them like a sponge, totally to accept everything that is given as though everything that is given is useful. If you come to these institutions with a root in yourself, then you can extract from these institutions those things that you feel are beneficial to you and your people, and you can leave the other material alone. But the responsibility after getting knowledge is to let us create the institutions that satisfy our own needs. That means education, if you will, politics, if you will, economics, housing. Instead of our being subject to their architectural design, we've got to begin to plan cities for us, plan civilization for us. I mean, we just have to do these things. Their world, if you can see that their world is closing down and you will not be able to depend on them to do for you in the future what they've done in the past, then we've got to do those things for ourselves. So what we want to do is establish schools, hospitals, farms, factories, communication systems, everything that goes for national development, we've got to have it. And it must speak of our perception of reality, not theirs, but ours. And if we do that, then I think we can affect our people's thinking and change it radically within the next few years. Thank you. Yes, ma'am?
You mentioned earlier that we work with radio, we work with television, because we have the vision. And I'd like to ask you a question. I have many strange things been happening to me. When I took calculus, I could predict the questions before seeing the examination, word for word. I did not cheat. The teachers, they were scared of me. Because the final, I walked in when I was taking Calc 2 and I had the teacher 30 questions and he gave 33. And the 30 questions, 27 of them were there. I don't know where I got them from. Last year I've been having a dream for about 6 months that my house burned because of the electrical problem. I went home and I told my folks and they tried to take the precaution. I got a call last year on March 10th that my house burned and my nephew got killed in it. And I have hundreds of other incidents I could relate. It caused me to be scared. If I tell something, it usually happens. How do I go for it?
Thank you, sister. Did you hear her? Now, I'm going to say this. Is Jamaica your home?
Yes.
I was in Jamaica talking to an engineer, and he asked me, by what right should we accept the interpretation of Scripture from Elijah Muhammad? Why can't I just give my own interpretation? My answer to him was, I may go to a waterfall and I may look at Niagara Falls and see its beauty from the purely esoteric, aesthetic rather, sense of beauty. But one who is gifted will look at the waterfall and see electric power that can turn the lights on in homes in the valley that are without light. Each of us are born with a gift. There are some of us more gifted than others. It appears to me that what God has blessed you with is a gift of being able to perceive before things come into reality. This is not something that you should be frightened by, but it is something that needs to be cultivated so that it can be used for the greatest possible good. There are some whites in this world today, they call them clairvoyant. They have this, what they call extrasensory perception. Every human being has these qualities. Color doesn't detract from it. Every human being has these qualities. But the original people have these qualities in greater capacity. But what has to happen, my dear sister, if I may say, is that that gift is such a great gift and an awesome gift that its development must be in harmony with your own spiritual development, which means that there's a responsibility, it would appear to me, on you to grow spiritually and to grow morally so that your gift will always be used for good and never for evil. Now, in the Bible and in the Quran, it talks about people with the gift of prophecy. There are women and men in Scripture that people never understood. They would think they're nuts. Because when they say what they perceive in the people's realm of reality, they say, oh, she's trying to snow us. She got those questions. She knew she stole the answer. They would much rather believe you're crooked than to believe you're gifted. Because they can deal with a crook, but they can't deal with the gift. You understand? And that's why gifted people have always suffered in the world, because the people's realm of perception was not of such that they could perceive that another human being could be just like them humanly, but gifted so far beyond them intellectually and spiritually that they could actually see things before those things came into existence. The protection of that gift is your own development in righteousness. I know some young men, sister, that could take a glass of water and actually look into the water and actually see in the water things that were happening in different parts of the earth through a glass of water. They were doing this at 10 years old. When they deviated from righteous principle, they lost the gift. Some of our children today are being born with such extraordinary powers that they frighten their own parents. And the parents find themselves at a loss to deal with our own 2-year-olds. And what I don't want to take up a lot of time on this, but I want to say to you is that the answer to a people's prayers are coming from the womb of women. The answer to a nation's needs are coming from the womb of women. So when these little gifted children come forward and begin to say things at 2 that blow your mind, at 3 that flabbergast you, at 6 that almost annihilate you, then you better know that in order for you to handle these gifted children that God is blessing us with to solve our problems and the problems of the world, we have to come more in harmony with a natural righteousness that will allow us to feed this growth and never be afraid of it. Never be afraid of it. That's your gift. So whenever the next exam is coming out, see, someone will come to you and ask you that. Well, if you can see, show me the next exam. Or tell me what the number is going to be. I know. See, but this is subjecting your gift to a subordinate level, which will ultimately cause you to lose it. You're not to ever use gifts to satisfy people on a bestial plane. Your gift should be used to bring them up from that level and show them that what your gift is, they also have it, but they can develop it if they balance their minds with more righteousness. You're never going to be able to get away from righteousness, brothers and sisters. I don't care how hip you are. If you don't do things right, you're going to lose. Not only your gifts, but your life. Thank you. May God bless you, sister. And I want to say, sisters from Jamaica, which is my father's home, that black people all over the world have got to stop functioning on the base of our oppressors poisoning our minds against each other. Because the accent is different. The problems that we face as black people is the same. So our African brothers, our brothers and sisters from the Caribbean, our brothers and sisters in America, we are one family. And you should take advantage of being at Cornell, where the world students come here to learn. You should not be in an isolated situation where you do not have intercourse with the students from all over the world who tomorrow are going to be the leaders in their country. And you will be a leader also. And those contacts that you make with little simple Johnny from Senegal, or Lumumba from Zaire, or sister from Jamaica, or another from Barbados or Trinidad, and another from Pakistan, or another from somewhere else in the world, these contacts that you're making today, you don't know who you're looking at. Kwame Nkrumah was a student in one of these institutions just like yourself. So was Ho Chi Minh. So was Ezekwe. So were some of the great minds that are shaping the destiny of things today. So your relationship to third world people, especially oppressed people, should be heightened. And as black students, if you would stop partying so much and start thinking more about the struggle of our people worldwide for liberation, more third world people would want to know you, and you should want to know them and establish these ties of relationship. Thank you for raising the question, sister. Now there were a few more. I don't remember your hand, so would you raise them again? Yes, ma'am?
I had to raise my hand first, but when I was listening to you and you brought out a lot of the scriptures, one came to my mind that I haven't understood fully, and it was related to another issue that I've been dealing with that I feel you can give me some insight on. And the scripture talks about how when God formed the heavens and the earth, He made every plant before it was in the ground, and every herb before it grew. But there was not a man to till the ground. and there was not water. He had not caused it to rain yet. And then he goes on to say how he formed man and breathed into him life, and he became a living soul. And after that, woman was made from man to be his company, his companion. And it seems that in the process of the dehumanization that has gone on in this country, the black woman has been raped, which has taken, after God gave us dominion over all living things, and the woman was raped, the man began to lose his pride. And in the reconstruction, I saw the scripture saying that all things were made even before they manifested themselves, and the manifestation was to come later. And even as things happen today, I see things being manifested, but I'm worried as a sister that my brother, continues to have dominion even over me, in the sense that God has made us, and that he is not intimidated, or that he is not overruled by the potential that comes out of the woman who is the keeper of the culture. And it seems like a trap is there that we can't see through enough to keep that destruction from being perpetuated. And it's hard. As a sister, sometimes I feel like I need to sit down because I want to see a man do this. But in the absence of that happening, you got to do it. And then, because see, this parallel white feminist movement has started distorted what the sisters is doing. And some of them are beginning to think, that they don't need the man.
Oh,
and
of course.
It's like a confusion. And I haven't come to any conclusion on what does it mean, to me, and how can I deal with that as a black woman.
My sister's all right, boy. Do you mind if we take the time to answer that question? I don't want to leave you. I know you have other things planned, and I know this is the wrap-up of the conference. But her question is so profound. I don't think we should just lightly hit it and dodge it and duck it and run from it. I think we should try to do some justice to that question. Are there any other questions that were to be asked? Yes, sir. No, I want to hear your question, because maybe we can integrate them.
My question was briefly speaking about the new changes in Africa now.
Yes.
With Zimbabwe now blacks coming into rule. It was a two-part question. The first question is, what position should the blacks in America take now as the goals in Africa are being achieved by the revolutionaries there? And the second question is, do you perceive of a Holocaust for the whole world developing between South Africa and the rest of the world?
His question, which I shall take his question first, sister, if you don't mind, because her question, I think, needs a... Yes, ma'am?
I have a question on the same line as the current, because this is something that we were talking about last week. I don't want to know just only what did I, as a black woman, but I want brothers to get insight.
Yes, we intend to deal with that too. All right. Now I'm going to say, yes, sir?
About 3 years ago, you told a story about the struggle of life. You started with the picture of the sperm.
Yes.
I think you should tell it again. It was beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Now, yes, sir.
Just in light of what the sister was talking about, I realized the problems that I have trying to exist in this world. And listening to you talk, and this is about the 8th time I've heard you talk. And I've always gained inspiration, but every time I push back out there, it kind of beats up the barriers that I try to create in order to exist as a black man.
Yes.
And it's very difficult because I've come through a route of playing football
Yes, sir.
And then try and pull away and gain an education as being an engineer. And it's, I don't know, that struggle, sometimes I go home and I'm just tired.
Yes, I can understand that.
And it's, you know, just along with the, you know,
I will deal with it.
I try the best I can, and I try to feed off of the positive energies that I see, like from you and from other people or black people that are doing positive things. But it's, in my perspective, it's difficult.
We will try to reinforce that. Now, to go to Africa quickly. I'm going to reserve judgment on Zimbabwe. We know that Brother Mugabe, with all of the opposition against him, has won. After the struggle for liberation is won, that's the first phase. Sometimes we rejoice so much after the struggle, we don't solidify the gains of that struggle, and then there begins to come about an erosion. Many of the leaders on the African continent right now are very unfit. All the strong leaders of yesterday, most of them have been killed or done away with. Though there are better leaders evolving right now, but they're in, so to speak, a cocoon of development. But you're going to see a tremendous amount of revolution on the African continent because the neo-colonialists have put into power in many countries in Africa those that are pleasing to them. And they are trying to hopefully shape Mugabe, if they can, to be something that is pleasing to them also. If he can resist that and go on with the revolution, he cannot stop with the victory and then leave the system of the enemy in, though he's dealing with that reality. I think Prime Minister Manley had that same problem in Jamaica. You cannot talk about a socialist revolution and then leave the remnants of the system of your enemy in place. You've got to sweep that whole thing out. And if we don't have the courage to do that, then we delay the inevitable, because ultimately it's going to bring about a terrible clash in the society, which Jamaica is now facing revolution. Trinidad is facing revolution. In fact, the whole of the Caribbean is facing revolution, because if you say you want to be a socialist, then you're in the Western Hemisphere where this enemy puts pressure on your socialist, we say movement, to bring it to a halt. He turns the intellectuals in your society against you, causing them to flee the country. So your brains leave, leaving you there with just the people who need the intellectuals to help, but the intellectuals are gone. So Jamaica's in trouble, and I hope that Zimbabwe won't get into that kind of trouble. The brother didn't win the election. He won the revolution. But if he looks at it as though he won the election rather than the revolution, then he won't continue to make the revolutionary changes that will satisfy the hunger in the masses of Zimbabweans to placate the few 100,000 whites, that he's got to assure them that he's not going to immediately. Well, this is very good language he's using. You know, so I hope that we can encourage Brother Mugabe to go all the way. All African leaders, I hope we can encourage them to go all the way. The minority has lived with disrespect for the majority. And I don't think that the majority needs to be concerned about who in the minority is affected by the changes that we make if they're for the good of the indigenous people of that country. Now, there are pragmatic things that we have to consider in the realm of reality. And we've got to work with those things, you see. And so this is what Mugabe has to face. And this is what African leaders in the next decade are going to have to face. The battle between what is pragmatic as opposed to what is in the long range best interests of the people. Now, yes, there's going to be a Holocaust. Yes. And it's not going to be too long from now. America is heading into war with Russia, which will happen. Africa is heavily involved. Asia is heavily involved. It's not going to be any peaceful settlement to the problems of black people in Africa. No, no, no. They may allow Mugabe to settle in office and he may be assassinated, which all strong black leaders run that risk today, which we all know. But bloodshed is definitely going to flow in Azania and even again in Zimbabwe and in Namibia and throughout the African continent. The Middle East is destined to go up in flames. Asia, there's going to be great trouble coming out of the Far East for the Western powers. I don't care how much the Chinese smile, they have another thing in mind. And if Deng and Hua Kuo-feng want to be the appeasers, you know, there is a revolutionary underpinning that was created by Mao. And you can't sweep Mao out any more than the changes in the Nation of Islam could eradicate Elijah Muhammad and the base that he laid for us. So you can't do that. The man was so in accord with the nature and the needs of the masses of the people that what he laid is going to stand temporarily. It may have a setback, but it'll come right back up more powerful than ever. And you're going to see that again in China and the unification or alliance, strong alliance with the Chinese and the Japanese. And they're going to move to drive everything Western out of Asia. And these things are going to create havoc for us in America. Because as whites have to run out of Iran, leaving their goodies behind, run out of Afghanistan, leaving their wealth behind, run out of Zimbabwe, run out of Azania, 537 American corporations in Azania. Well, when the stuff starts going down there, you know, the eagles are flying. They got to get out. And when they get out, you know where they're coming. Right here, where the boat people are coming. Where everybody that has played ball with America has got to come home, like the Shah. Tried to come in, but there's so much pressure, poor fella. Well, what does that mean for you and me? It means that the whites of this country, when your brothers start firing on them there, they start firing on us here. And there's going to be lots of bloodshed, tremendous amount of bloodshed in the streets within the next 18 to 24 months, 30 months. It'll be right on, we'll be right on into it. This is the final decade, brother, that will decide, you know, the fate of this country and our people. And personally speaking, I'm willing to make whatever sacrifice is necessary, even my life, to make sure that those young babies that I see in the back, that they breathe free. And if the Holocaust took 250 million, as you stated, to get us into this condition, so if we lose 10 or 15 million lives to get out of it, then if we got 5 million or 10 million people left, we got enough to build a free base to start again. And I think that sacrifice of life is going to be absolutely necessary in this decade to win liberation totally, completely, forever. And there is no compromise. No compromise. It's liberty or death. Nothing in between. All right. Now, my sister's question and answer, which, yes, sir?
Question. You were going to be addressing the roles of black men and black women during a relationship. Could you also address the role of the white American, if there is one, and what that in a relationship might be?
Yes. Thank you. All right. Yes, sir?
Yes, could you also give a little attention to the problem of accountability?
Yes. I'll start with that.
Even within...
I'm going to start with that right now. Accountability, problem accountability. Everybody all right? This is the last question, last answer. Then we can go wherever we're supposed to go. And if you want to go and boogie, well, that's all right. But just don't get too far down. You know, just... All right. Now, brothers and sisters, first I will address accountability. You know that because of the governmental interference with true black leadership and the destruction of true black leadership, there's a very great lack of trust on the part of black people for any leader, no matter who that leader or teacher is. And that's not bad. That sets up, it seems to me, a very positive thing to produce this accountability. Now, in trying to rebuild the work of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I recognize that the enemy within and without has sown certain seeds of distrust against Brother Farrakhan, personally. I noticed, it came out in a paper, or someone made a speech in Los Angeles, in Oakland, that Farrakhan was a former FBI agent who was converted by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Now, I don't care how outlandish it sounds, there's some that are going to believe it. And that's the whole point in slander. To slander you in such an effective way that you spend your time trying to prove that it's not true, you know, and you get off the program. So we've devised a way to get around that. And that is accountability in the most strict sense of the word. I have told the members of the Nation of Islam who want to see the Nation of Islam rebuilt that I am accountable. And I have taken a pledge and an oath, and it will be in writing, that if I become a traitor to the cause of freedom, justice, and equality for black people, that I am to be killed by the brothers of the FOI. That's signed, sealed, and delivered. In other words, I ain't talking. My life is backing up my word. And if you mean what you say, I ain't got time to trust nothing but my ability to kill you if you mess up. I'm not asking nobody to trust Farrakhan. Because if you have to build a record, I've got 25 years in the struggle. If that's not enough to trust me, then trust your ability to kill me if I become a traitor to the cause. So they ain't got nothing to say. I'm accountable. Now, as I produce that kind of accountability, and my life is on the line, and everyone that comes with me, I'm talking about those in leadership, they got to take that same oath. That we're going to kill you if you mess up. And I mean, intend to do it. Oh, well, you go to jail. Oh, shut up. You can't frighten a black man with jail. We were born in jail. It's time that we make examples. Wait a minute. It's time that we make examples of our traitors just like every other intelligent people make example of their traitor. What the hell do you expect us to do? Hold our Benedict honors for your law? To hell with your law. We will kill those who violate the cause of the black man's liberation. That's all. Then we stop them from putting leaders on us. And we stop our crazy leaders from using our plight for self-aggrandizement and notoriety. Want to get on television with no substance. Death is the answer for you. And fill the cemetery with leaders. Then the next crop that come up, oh boy, they'll remember, man, I know what the last group got. I ain't playing around, boy. And let me tell you something. When half of these people that speak and lead know that if they mess up, death will come after them, do you know they'll act better? Do you know you can't send your politicians into this corrupt mud pile called the United States Congress or the state legislature and think that they're going to come out clean when you know that it was dirty before you sent them there? And if you don't keep the inner gene and the Mr. Clean and everything in your hand to polish your politicians, when they come home, they'll be making deals that you won't know nothing about and get corrupt, and you say them leaders ain't no good. No, you have not demanded their accountability. And it's time that the people, black people, who have been the victims of every crook and liar and robber and thief, demand accountability and put to death everyone that violates the trust. And that is what we are doing and intend to propose. And it will be carried out in this decade. In fact, don't look for the whole decade. In a few years, this will be carried out on every victim so that white folks don't have more control over your leaders than you do. And they have always wanted control over black leaders so that they can use black leaders to move the masses in a direction that's favorable to them and not to us. So we cut that off by telling the leader, you die, and Whitey cannot protect you. And if you think that I'm just saying this, keep on breathing. Keep on breathing. And if you think you can kill me and get away with it, well, come on and try it. Because, you see, there's going to be a price that you have to pay today for killing black leaders. Yesterday, you paid a cheap price. Today, the price is real high because we've been through too much. And white leaders are just as vulnerable as black leaders. So, you know that old saying, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. You kill my dog, I kill your cat, and maybe your rat too. Understand? All right. Accountability. We got to be accountable. He told us in 1961, he asked us all, he said, how many of you will be willing to sign a paper that says if you are treasonous against the cause of freedom, justice, and equality for the black man, that the FOI can take your life? Would you raise your hands? And I mean, a few of us raised our hands real gingerly, and he smiled. He said, Well, he put it out there. He didn't put it out there for fun. He don't speak idle words. Now is the time that that kind of law should come on every leader. He must pay with his life if he messes up the trust. Now, all of us have weaknesses. There's none of us that are perfect. But we do not have to be traitors to the cause. We punish weakness. We don't kill people because they're weak. But to be a traitor, you don't have to do that. You don't have to join black organizations to spy for white people. You don't have to do that. They have sophisticated eavesdropping devices. They can hear your toilet flush and know what you ate. All right, now, my dear patient sister, we're going to tie all these questions in together. First of all, the story of creation. It's called the first book of Moses, 4000 BC. And we know that creation did not start 6,000 years ago. So at best, what you have there is a symbolic representation of powerful truths. You used the word, things were in existence before they manifested. Then you talked about the leaves or the grass being there, but there was no one to till the ground. Till the ground. What it is referring to in the whole passage of light coming out of darkness and the separation of night and day and creation, it is talking, spiritually about a people and how all people come into existence. Moses was the first great teacher for the Caucasian people. And he was showing them through the creation how they came into existence. That as the whole world was covered with darkness, and all life starts in darkness and then comes out into light, Moses was telling them in symbolic language, look, there was a time when the human family was black. And as light came out of darkness, white came out of black. And as darkness is separated from light, because the properties and nature of light and darkness are different. It's talking about not only the separation between light and darkness, that thing goes all the way through the scripture, that the blind and the seeing are not alike, the living and the dead are not alike, the righteous and the wicked are not alike. There's going to come a time of separation between darkness and light, meaning the things of evil and the things of good. And when light comes into the darkness of the mind, it begins to separate from you the things that you do out of ignorance and out of passion, and the things that you do from an enlightened intelligence. Okay? Now when it says there's no tiller to till the ground, as Honorable Elijah Muhammad makes us to understand, it's talking about the Caucasian, and it's also talking about you. And it's talking about humanity as such. That, as I mentioned to Sister, we are all created with gifts. Okay? The aim of technology is to extract from things that are present or things that are, we call it potential, and make them actual. If there is no tiller to till the ground, it is saying that in you there is great potential, but there is no tiller, no one to come and develop that potential which is within you. There's no tiller of your soil, your gifts, your talents. So you, as a human seed, lie dormant, not yet manifested, though in existence. Can you see it? All right. So then he says, let us make man. Oh, it's so beautiful if it's understood. Now, what happens when there's a people that need tilling, that need development, that need cultivation, but they are in a state of dormancy? The Caucasians were that way in the caves of Europe. They had potential. They had tremendous gifts and abilities, but they were dormant under savagery in the hills and cave sides of Europe. There was no man to till the ground, to bring out of the Caucasian what was in him, because he was destined to be a ruler over all things. Now, then, as you say, let there be light to light up the darkness, and God said, let us make man. Those two are synonymous, man and light. You're not really a man until you're enlightened. Until man is enlightened, he functions on the plane of the animal. Okay? Let there be light, and let us make man. What is the man to do? Till the ground. You got it? But the ground is not talking about a garden of paradise, some little lovely garden and all like that. It's really talking about a paradise that is within the soul of the people, that needs to be cultivated and brought out. Like the scripture says, the kingdom of heaven is within you. Well, if the kingdom is within you, why isn't the kingdom out of you? Because there was no man to till the ground. Let us make man. Now, notice, what kind of man you going to make, God? He said, let us make man after our image and in our likeness. Right? Why must he be after the order of God? Because if he's going to be a godly man, he's going to till and cultivate those qualities that lie dormant within the human being. So Adam was made. But Adam rebelled, if you remember the scripture. But he didn't rebel until after woman was made. Is that right? Oh, now don't you get all upset. That has wonderful meaning. Now look, you know they can't produce life and water hadn't come into existence. Water is the base of life. So you can't say that the grass was there and this was there, but there was no water. No, if the grass was there, there had to be water, because water is the source of all living things. Is that right? Okay, so what does it mean there was no water? Water is the agent of cultivation, of development. Water, when it hits the seed, it causes the seed to swell, to germinate, to swell, to burst, right? Well, it's not talking about physical water. If there's grass, you know there had to be physical water. If there's cattle, you know there had to be physical water, because they couldn't live without water. The base of their life is water, right? So if the grass was there, if the cattle was there, water was there. But what is missing? It's the spiritual water of wisdom and knowledge that must drop on your mind to start the cultivation of your qualities that lay dormant. But in order to do that, there needs to be a man, an enlightened mind, developing among you with the wisdom or the water to drop it on the people who lie uncultivated, and then with the light and heat and water, life will germinate and a new creature will come forth out of this dormant thing. All right? Now it says Adam was made from the dust of the earth. All that is symbolic, which we don't have time to dig into the depth of that at this point. Then he grabs a rib of Eve, puts Adam to sleep, and gets his rib and makes a woman. Now. You're intelligent. You know that we don't make a woman from a rib. This is crazy. It's not scientific. So it must mean something else, doesn't it? All right, what it's talking about is a people before a prophet. They're in darkness. They're in ignorance. There is no man to cultivate their qualities. God sees their need, and out of his beneficence and mercy, he makes a man in his image to minister unto that uncultivated people. Now, the man is alone. Whenever an enlightened man comes into the world, he is alone. Have you noticed that every man who advanced the world in science or technology and philosophy, he was alone, opposed on all sides, because enlightenment in a world of ignorance is singular and alone. So he needs company. He's lonely. So what do? From his rib. What does the rib mean? As the rib is that which encases what? The lungs, right? And the heart. So you have two vital organs encased by the rib. The heart, which is supposed to be the seat of emotion, and the lungs, which fill with air, which is the energy for the life of that body. So you have air, which in scriptural sense means inspiration. Can you see it? When you breathe in physical oxygen, you breathe life in to your system, right? Without air, you can't live. Without inspiration, you don't live on a spiritual plane. So the lungs represent inspiration, the heart as the seat of emotion, the root emotion, which is the root of all quality, is love. So out of God's love for the people, he gives them a man. And out of the man's love for God and love for the inspiration of truth, he forms a community that is, like Eve, a help meet to help that prophet meet his word that he has given to God to cultivate, develop, and till the people. Now, we come to man and woman. That is a beautiful symbolic picture. Eve is made from Adam. A prophet's community comes from that prophet. That's why in falsely naming the religions of the prophets, they call the the followers of Christ Christians. The followers of Muhammad, Mohammedans, right? Because that community came out of the love of that prophet for God and the love of that prophet for truth and the people. He forms a community after that truth that aid him, that help him, that become his disciples in this work. All right. But it's also saying that woman is from the same essence as man. And it's also saying a very profound truth, that the woman is created with a nature to help the man. Now, to help somebody, you can't have your own idea if you're going to help me with the idea that I have. Your idea may be cross purposes with mine. So if you are a helper, you have the spirit to give up your idea to help that man with his idea. And if you watch a woman, and listen carefully, any woman that falls in love with a man, I'm talking about love, I ain't talking about just companionship. You are willing to give up your own, I would call it your life, to help him realize his goal and ambition. Every sister in here that has fallen in love will see her man as greater and is willing to subordinate her own desires to see his desire come to fruition, because in the fruition of his desire is the fulfillment of her root desire, which is to make him happy and to help him achieve his goal. Now the Western man is a little different than that. And that's why he may not agree with what I'm saying, because he's different. So we'll talk about his role later. But now, this is in you. As brilliant as you are, sister, and God knows you're brilliant, and as much as I can see coming from you for the advancement of our people, if you fall in love with a man, if a man is able to attract your love, I mean really attract your love, you may give up your ambition to see him become what he desires. And that's in you. You just said it. You said it so beautifully. I want him to have dominion even over me. But he feels so threatened by me, you know, till he's fighting me. This is what you're saying underneath. All right. But why? Why? Everybody all right? Everybody all right now? Okay, now let's get to the roots. And this is something I think that scientific people should really study. And this is not male chauvinism. But did you notice that the ideals of a nation are generally carried in the male? In his genetic makeup, you being a descendant of the Creator, the ideal of the Creator is in you. The female, she's of the same essence, but she is a natural reflector of the ideal. She's not necessarily the original carrier of that ideal. She is a born reflector of that ideal. Sister says she, would you say, transmits the culture? She's the, how did you use it, your words? You said that she is the keeper of the culture. That's what you said. I like those words. Now, why is she the keeper of the culture? Just look at her nature. See, that ability of the female to hold the germ of a man within her and not give it back to him as he gave it to her, but to take it and evolve it from a low state to a very highly developed state and then give it back. See? That's her nature. On every level, she has never been utilized properly. Never. Now let's look at this. Did you notice in this society, black women outstrip black men intellectually? You know? They got more guts when it comes to standing up. Men sometimes just hang back, you know, and the women go out, honey, come on. Yeah. And you want to take that from that hunky? I mean, this, and the man trying to say, hush, honey, you gonna get us all killed. And she about to say, I don't give a damn. Be a man. Man, we just look at you. Why are you like this? And why is the man so retiring and you know, unassuming, and he seems so dead? Haven't you noticed, sisters? You notice you can control 98% of the men. You got them in your control. And you know this. I'm just whispering it because he may not have found this out yet.
If this is true, and you know that anything that you control, you cannot respect it on your level. Once you control the man, he's lost you. He just, brother, you lost your girlfriend, your wife, once she controls you. Because once she controls you, she's your mother. Can you dig it? Look, look. That's why you will always use that filthy word, MF. It's the biggest word in a black man's vocabulary. White folk don't use that word like you use it. But you use it all the time, and for you it makes sense. Oh, no, brothers, I'm not talking down on us. I'm just making a statement of fact now. Look, brothers, she has to mother you. She takes over where your mother left off. And she's hurt, man. She's looking for somebody to comfort her. She's looking for somebody to secure her. She's looking for somebody to guide her. She ain't looking for no big babies. You on her breast and won't get off? Oh, yes. Anytime you got a society where women can walk with no bra and just jiggle up in a man's face and he just goes wild, it's a baby civilization. Baby civilization. Poor fella, he still wants the milk. Bless his little heart. I'm saying it in a nice little sweet way, but you know, brothers and sisters, the black man is in bad shape. Even the best of us are in terrible shape. We create adultery in our own women. A woman, black woman, and I can say this for any woman, even a white woman, she's not desirous of adultery if you are what she expects in a man. If you are complete, then she's so in love with you till another man's trying even to get near her, it angers her so completely till he knows it instantly. She'll turn on him like a wild animal. How dare you? Because she's in love, and her love has secured her, and she doesn't want anyone interfering with her security, so she'll tear your behind up if you try to intrude on her when she's really in love. But man, if you are not complete as a man, then you create the condition that breeds adultery because her soul is not satisfied. And so you'll be dancing with her, and she'll be looking over your shoulder. You'll take her to the disco and she'll be boogieing, seeing who's picking up on her because you ain't nothing. She's found some qualities in you that are nice, but you're just not complete. And the dumbness of you, my brothers, to think that sexually, you know, you raising all this hell and you think that that's where it's at. But boy, if she could tell you what I'm going to tell you. That look, I don't care if sexually you were as profound as an ape. You can't satisfy her with sex alone, because there are higher things in her that she calls for. And those things in her that she calls for, if you give her those things, just your touch is satisfaction. Oh, yes. It's true. Just your presence, just your embrace makes her feel good. But if you are not a complete man, which this world does not make us, brothers, this world is designed to dwarf the ideals of God. And you being a descendant of the Creator and an original man, you carry the ideal of God in your genetic makeup. And this world crushes the ideal of God in you. So the more you grow into the world, the more you die as a mind to influence the world. So you become influenced by the world. Therefore, she cannot see in you the qualities that attract her love, her honor, and her willingness to obey you. So she begins to reflect the power of this world, which is the Caucasian. And by reflecting his world, she is used unwittingly by him to crush you. Our women are used to crush the man. And if you watch, sisters, something comes up in a black woman. When a black man stands up and he looks like he wants to oppose the white man's world, sometime his mother will say, boy, listen, boy, is you crazy? You want to get yourself killed? Now listen, you get on that campus and you shut your mouth, you stay out of all that political bull and you all that black awareness crap, you get your studies and you don't get involved. See, that's killing a budding ideal that wants to come to birth in you. Sometimes you want to go into business. You feel you want to do something for yourself. She don't feel secure with you yet. So she says, now, honey, you got a good job. You stay right there now. I mean, because after all, look at the bills we've got here. She's an unwitting crusher of the ideal of God in a man. When he comes up and he wants to assert himself, she sees he's strong in one point, but he's weak in so many others. She just uses her mouth like a rapier, like a sword, man. And she chops him up. And when she gets finished with him, I'm telling you, sisters, the way you use your mouth, you kill a budding man. He's trying to be a man, you know what I mean? And you know he's just trying, poor thing. He hasn't got it together yet. And when you see him trying, instead of you feeding it, you cut it up. You ain't so hot. You little old weakling, you. I remember. And you start running down his shortcomings, and before you know it, he's on the campus with a broken wrist. He can't cope with a woman, so he figured, what the hell, I might as well turn into one myself, since they have it all together. So he's running down the street, running after a man, because a man ain't gonna make no demands on another man. That's a pure animal thing. Hides all. So now she left without a man, becoming harder every day. Man ain't nothing. Then she becomes a lesbian. Now you're all just falling down on each other. When you get together, man, these no nigga men ain't nothing. This is the talk. And he's so, hey, I don't know what the hell, I done suffered so much. And before you know it, I understand your suffering. And before you know it, another woman in bed with another woman. And here you got a generation of freaks going on because we can't cope with the reality, the harsh reality of our existence. Now, I'm going to say something here very quickly and pass over it. But the reason you don't satisfy her, we don't satisfy her, brothers, is because she's not the woman of man. She's the woman of God. And the only way you can satisfy her, you must reflect her Creator. Otherwise, she's deficient. And you can never bring out of her what is in her for you. The messenger of Allah, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, said to us that the greatest heaven for man is woman. You looking for heaven everywhere else. It's right in her. But we don't have the technology to get out of her what God put in her for us, so we end up creating hell where there should be heaven. Now, do you realize when you read the scripture, when Pharaoh got Israel in bondage and he saw Israel multiplying, what did Pharaoh say? Kill who? the boy children and spare the female. That should tell you something about the nature of male and female when a wise ruler will want to leave the woman and kill the man. Because once you kill the Israelite man, you're killing the ideal of the Israelite God that's carried in the genetic makeup of the Israelite man. But if you allow the woman to exist, then we can feed our ideals through her because she's a reflector. If you notice, sister, your cycle is on the cycle of the moon. Is that right? Come on. Said this nigga getting into everything. No. We just want to show you that everything is related, brothers and sisters. Life is a beautiful thing, you know, and knowledge is beautiful if we just get into it. The woman's 28-day cycle, right, is related to the moon. The moon is not a carrier of water. And because she doesn't have water, she attracts the waters. You notice? Moon has a tremendous pull on the waters of the earth. But the moon also has no light of its own. The moon is a reflector of the light of the sun. Is that right? Well, what that's telling us on another level is the woman is a reflector of the ideals of God contained in man. But since the nature of the black man is different from the nature of the man who rules the world, he cannot allow you to come into freedom to put your ideals forward, because your ideals being pushed forward would crush the ideals that his world is built on. So this is why everything in this world is to suppress you, black man. Black man, kill you, black man, destroy you, black man. Not only do whites have some kind of fetish with your sex organ, where they would castrate a black male because that black sperm put it in a white woman and the baby is no more white. Even a white man dealing with a black woman is the sperm of a Caucasian, but once it get in a black woman, she fixes it for him. And I mean, it come on out, that ain't no white child. Even though the father is white, the child now has been given something through that black woman that a white woman couldn't give his own seed. This is why he wants to put his seed in the black woman so that through her he can live. But not only can he live through putting his seed in you, he lives by putting his ideas in you, because as long as you carry and reflect his ideas, you reflect those ideas to your children, and your children are inundated with his ideas, and they grow up with the ideal of God killed in them, because you are reflecting alien ideas